so what do you do at camp? And I said, well, we play with crotch tents.
Dumb. So video games.
Yeah, so EA Access, have you heard of this? It's a subscription
Netflix.
service. It's like Netflix
Sorta,
for games,
yeah.
basically.
For EA
Which
games.
is not a novel concept, but it is novel because A, it's a platform exclusive on Xbox One,
Right.
which I can see why they did that. Don't think it's really gonna help sales a
I
lot.
also don't know that that'll last. Have they said whether or not it's an Xbox One forever or just for this beta?
I mean, I would assume it's forever. EA has pretty close ties with Microsoft, and a lot of like their sports titles and stuff people
Right.
usually play on Xbox.
So what are the games right now in this beta? So for $5 a month or $30 a year, you get Peggle 2, and then I stopped reading because
You
I'm
get
sold.
Peggle 2, you get Battlefield 4,
Right.
and then 2 sports games that I can't be bothered to remember the names of anymore. It's
Yeah.
like NFL 25 and FIFA 14, I think.
And the titles are rotating? Is that the idea?
I think they're rotating. It seems like based on the titles they've announced so far, it's games that are maybe a year old or something. I don't know if they're ever going to have brand new games up there. I don't think they will. Because
Right.
one of the other perks of
Sure.
the program is that you get 10% off all purchases, including full download titles.
Oh, weird. But only digitally?
Only digitally.
Okay.
It's like 10% off all digital purchases. And then you also get, this is the coolest part, you also get access to new games that are coming out, like a 5-day trial period or something before the games come out.
Wow. Okay.
So for like Dragon Age Inquisition, you would get to play that 5 days
I
early.
did hear some talk that those early access things might be limited possibly to like an hour of playing them though.
I figured it would be kind of like a demo or something.
They'll find a way to kneecap it. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, I don't know. I think the $5 a month proposition is actually pretty good,
It's not a bad
especially
price.
if they flesh it out to more than 4 games a year. But we're kind of seeing a lot of people go in this direction, right? Like PlayStation Now's streaming service, even though the prices are currently ridiculous and exorbitant
Yeah.
and way more expensive than it would cost to even buy the game online. I don't know. I think there's merit to this whole Netflix of games thing, and GameFly was never that exactly. It was still a little too inconvenient. It was before the eve of digital distribution. A digital Netflix for games that actually had a decent library, if that's where this is headed, which it feels like it might be, is kind of a cool idea. I don't know.
I mean,
It's a cool idea, but I kind of am not. I feel like they need to offer me something more to like actually get me to sign up. Like I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a cool idea. I'm sure someone wants that, but but hopefully like not everyone has that reaction, right? Because then no one's ever going to use it. But it's like I feel like the not having some new titles is hard.
Yeah.
I feel like the PlayStation Now does a really good job of here's a free game. And it
the
kinda
PS Plus stuff is
PS Plus,
also
yeah.
part of this conversation too,
Right.
because that's
Yeah.
also trending towards free games on demand, right?
And it's like, so you pay a subscription to like have all the other benefits of PlayStation Plus, but then you get this like little free game that's spotlighted and stuff like that. And that is really compelling because it often is like something I haven't played. It's somewhat newish, or it's like it is a new indie game or something like that.
Sony has done a phenomenal job of picking good games for PlayStation Plus, especially since the PS4 has
They
come
really
out.
have.
It's been interesting stuff that like a mix of old titles and titles that are alongside the release date, which is like totally fascinating.
Yeah, I'm a little puzzled by the games that they chose, because like especially like sports games and stuff, I feel like the type of people who play those
They already own 'em.
are like hardcore. They're already gonna own them.
That's what's weird is like I don't know who this is for. I think it's a great idea. It's a great concept. I'm all about subscription stuff, like kind of in general.
Right.
I pay for a subscription, like music, and like even like my editing software, is the Creative Cloud thing.
I just want to have access to them at all
Totally.
times.
Well, so that's the weird
Exactly.
thing, right? Is that
More cost effective most of the time.
I might sign up for this EA thing because $5 for Peggle 2 is cheaper than the actual price of Peggle 2, and if I play through that real quick and cancel it, then I'm good. But I think what we're all interested in is something actually akin to Netflix, where like the library is hundreds or thousands of games. Like how much would you pay for a monthly or yearly Steam subscription that gave you access to all of Steam?
God.
That would be amazing.
And my knee-jerk reaction to that is that would cost a ridiculous amount of money. But then you look at Netflix and the size of their library. I wonder if someone like Valve could make that work.
If Steam wanted to do something like this, they already have so many publisher collections. Like I see no reason why they couldn't just like, I mean, now, you know, they have sales and they're like, oh, get the whole Telltale collection for like $20 or something. Like, I don't see why they couldn't just make that a limited time only thing and give you access to it for a month. Maybe their infrastructure isn't set up for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do know that Valve has a precedent for being able to give users games and revoking access, because every once in a while you'll log in your Steam account and there'll be a game that's having a free weekend, like Borderlands 2 free weekend, and everyone has that in their library temporarily. So I think they potentially could do it, just a matter of if. And I think you're right about, like, it's so specific right now, EA's thing. It's specific to one platform and one publisher.
Yeah.
And 4 games right now. And like, I don't know that a person exists necessarily who's like, I'm a huge EA fan. I love all the EA games. Like, that's not a real
When
person.
I first heard about this, I assumed it was their entire collection, like old and new games. And I was like, this is brilliant. And then I read the actual fine print, and I was like, well, this is a little bit lackluster.
There's 2 sports games, Peggle and The Broken Battlefield.
But I mean, there are, like, Ubisoft would be a great publisher to have like an entire collection of, you know? Like, just play all of the Assassin's Creed games. I mean, you would need way more than a month to do that, but like, I would pay money for that.
And I think it would actually be really compelling, because I think there's plenty of people that are like, you know, there's been so many Assassin's Creed games that I'm not going to drop, like, you know, what it would probably almost be like a few $100, like, to play all of them. But like a subscription would, like, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna dive into this Assassin's Creed thing.
The other issue though is that on the current generation of new consoles, there's only one Assassin's Creed game. So in order for this to work, in order for this big collection of things to work,
PC.
or with streaming, right? I mean, like, if PlayStation Now ends up being a functional, relevant thing, and as internet connections get better over time, and as these services iron out the kinks, being able to stream and publish an entire back catalog, not just on this generation of platforms, but on everything, like being able to play Ubisoft PS1 games and stuff like that, that would be tight. Like,
it'd be crazy.
I feel like it'll also eliminate a lot of like buyer's remorse, because you buy an old game, you play 2 minutes of it, realize you hate it.
It's not as good as you remember it.
Exactly, and this way you could at least try stuff out, have a wide collection to try stuff from, and then be able to pick and choose what you actually want to play.
So the question then becomes, who's going to do it well first? Because I don't think EA's take on it is super revolutionary or an amazing value proposition yet. And PlayStation Now, likewise, is kind of ridiculous pricing-wise. So who's going to be the undeniable player who steps in? Like, who's going to be the Valve or the Netflix who just comes in with an undeniable value proposition that everyone's like, yes, of course, why would I not? I'd be losing money by not paying that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Valve doesn't necessarily have the motivation to like try like this type of business model. I feel like EA does. Like, I feel like EA is like, we have these games that we're not necessarily making money on, you know, like, how can we, like, I guess, like, lengthen their value? Kind of, I think they're kind of like copying the movie model, where there's like a theater release, that's where all the big money's made, and then there's like movie rentals and Netflix, and that's what they're trying to, like, they're probably totally beta testing this. That's probably why it's so few games. They're just trying to like do a small sample. But I'm not sure if Valve has the same motivation, because I think Valve's doing a really good job. That's what they're doing.
Making a shitload of money.
And I think it's mostly would have to come from a publisher. Like, I feel like Ubisoft could do it. I feel like what, it would be so crazy. It would totally be nuts, because it's like a new Rayman game comes out. I want to buy it. I have no interest in buying any of the old ones, because I rather just spend my money on the new one. But if I had access to them, I would totally play them to have a better understanding of like this new game in the context of its franchise.
Well, and I mean, as long as they keep it at about the price point EA's aiming at, like $4.99 a month or $30 a year, like, that's a pretty, they don't have the content there yet, but that's a competitive price. Like, it wouldn't take much for me to cough up $5 a month for something. I just would need it to be a substantial library. And the question, I think, with all these new pricing models is like, here's hoping that they do it in a way that isn't shitty and doesn't exploit customers. Like, here's hoping someone is smart enough to do it in a way that's appealing to people.
Tasteful.
Because right now, I don't think EA or Sony has done that, but I think someone will get there eventually. Whoever gets there first.
I think Valve would be the best at it, but you're right. I don't know if they really have a need for that kind of thing. I mean, they're not even really competing with Microsoft and Sony all that much anymore. They're kind of on their own.
And their Steam sales do so well.
Totally, but they are clearly not adverse to trying weird pricing models, because like, look at Dota and TF2. They can get experimental and weird when it behooves them, as long as it doesn't eat into their traditional business.
I implicitly trust everything Valve does.
I do too, but I don't know why. Like, I feel the same way.
It scares me.
We've got Stockholm syndrome.
Right? I love them, but like it's probably not healthy or wise to love.
You have an especially unhealthy relationship with Steam.
Yeah.
I've looked at your library.
It's, well, you know. Right off the bat, Rusty starts telling you about his failing business, struggles with raising his kids, and a collapsing marriage with a wife who walked out on him. He'll also bring all of these things up during your negotiations on game prices, putting you in the uncomfortable position of driving a hard bargain with a man who's just trying to provide for his family.